Welcome back to Sunday Nation with the President's State of the Union address and, of course, a new governor re-elected here in the state of Michigan. How are urban school districts doing? Lately, I have been using the terminology Black Michigan, looking at affairs affecting Black school districts, of course, Black residents across here, the state of Michigan. Joining us to talk about urban education here in the state of Michigan is Derrick Coleman, the General Superintendent of the River Rouge School District. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
You know, I want to open up with River Rouge School District,
yes,
where you are right now in this, what I call the changing phase of urban public education.
Yes. So in River Rouge, for those who don't know, we're on the southwest border of Detroit and the Detroit River. Literally 60% of my kids come from Detroit. I love our proximity because it gives us access to a population of students that are desperately looking for an opportunity and access to something that gives them a vehicle out of poverty.
Right.
The health of our district is predicated on the health of our students. And the work that we're doing, we're a trauma-informed district and trauma-responsive, which simply means that we believe that all children and adults, because the irony in that is that you can't have healthy children without healthy adults, have experienced some form of trauma. If that trauma has not been treated or if it's unresolved, it makes the educator, it stagnates their ability to provide quality instruction to children. Children themselves aren't primed for instruction. So we've just taken an approach that says that post-pandemic and where we are today, the mental health and well-being of all of our stakeholders is the single most important work that we can do to create academically competitive students.
So that's interesting you put it that way, trauma-informed and so forth, because you do recognize that, I mean, a lot of these kids come from underserved backgrounds.
Yes. And so I mentioned post-pandemic, but pre-pandemic, poverty in itself is endemic. And so I'm a child of poverty. Fortunately, I came from a family that at the very least was able to provide a loving environment for me. My friends didn't have that same opportunity. And so what happens when you're talking about multi-generational poverty? It seems never ending. So children rarely become what they haven't seen. They're only going to be as healthy as their ecosystem. So if the school does not recognize that, to say that an institution that was created off of a middle-class set of values and beliefs, where the majority of the children that come to you are from poverty, as evidenced by your free and reduced lunch status, you have to do something different to provide that child with an opportunity to become, again, academically competitive and balanced in a healthy vantage point.
So how has it been for River Rouge School District in making this, the schools become that educational and cultural ecosystem, that the safe space for those students?
Yes. So we've been doing this work intentionally since 2014. And I thought that we had done great work. But then what I recognized is we didn't have the traction that I thought we should based on our investment. Now, part of that is because of migration patterns of teachers.
Right.
Teachers are transient. They come into districts, they may leave for a variety of reasons. Yeah. And so you've invested so much into that person, that human resource, and the kids themselves are going to transition in and out. At best, you'll have them from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Right.
But depending on their entry point, so you're meeting people in all these different touch points. So to answer the question, I recognize that you cannot have healthy children without healthy adults. And so our emphasis shifted from being exclusively about the well-being of the student to how do you create healthy adults that can then come in, because adults are going to suffer from compassion fatigue. And even if they care enough, there's a toolbox that they need to be able to address the multiple behaviors, the situations that these children bring. And so the best teachers are then going to be forced to leave because they're not prepared for that environment.
So it matters who get in front of those kids.
Yes.
The mindset as well.
Oh, absolutely. And again, we, and it's funny because, and I don't mean this in a condescending way. Adults are nothing but grown children. So to believe that because they've been successful in receiving a degree or multiple degrees in higher education, that they're mentally able to go into that space is a fallacy. But the ego is a powerful thing because I'm not going to walk into an interview you're going to meet my representative. You're going to meet my representative in most situations because the Japanese says we have 3 faces. 1 is the face that you show to everybody. 2 is the face that you'll show to the people closest to you. But the 3rd is only the face that you know. We're going to get at best 1. I learned that people don't know themselves as well as they think they do. So I just through trial and error understood that without addressing the needs of the adult, it's impossible for them to help kids. You can't pour from an empty glass. My brother-in-law told me as a child, he said, if the easiest way to get a job done is to have the tools. So you're going to send somebody into a space without the tools. They're full of passion, but that in itself is energy, is fuel. It's going to run out. So what happens now, if I need something that I don't have, I'll flee the profession.
So let's talk about how we create excellence
Yes.
out of Auburn School District, right?
Yes.
And I mean it in the context of what we see in the mass media is that public education or Auburn school districts have become the poster child of all that is wrong with public education. Now, there's so many layers to that and components, but how do we create a trail of excellence, models of excellence out of Auburn school districts?
Excellent question. But I think first we need to clearly define what excellence is.
Yeah.
Because if you're measuring me by my ability to perform well on a standardized assessment, that everybody that I speak to, I ask them one simple question. What does the test measure? The majority of the people can't tell me. I'm going to tell you what it measures. It measures the income achievement gap. Look at the listing or the rankings of schools. Schools in your higher income communities are going to perform better than schools in your lower income communities, with the exception of magnet schools. So the sheer measurement tool or the metric that we're using is inaccurate.
It's a faulty premise.
Exactly. How am I able to grow that student if the research says that children in urban areas enter school already behind? That's why there's a huge push for universal pre-K and Head Start. So they come to us behind. The research will say that we in urban districts have done a phenomenal job in closing the achievement gap. It doesn't widen, but because they're already behind while they get there, to get to proficiency is going to be a challenge. But I can show you growth. If I told you that your credit score, that you as a person don't matter because you don't have a 760, my children are going to have a 760 by the sheer nature of their birthright. I'm putting them on credit cards early. But if you went from a 480 in college to within 3 years, you're at a 660, that is incredible. How do I now say that you are a high-risk client when you've shown me the propensity for improvement? So I think that the narrative, the metric that we're using is unfair to all of these urban educators that take children daily.
So this message, how do we, I feel like politicians and policymakers need to understand this because they're still dealing with the traditional measurement, this traditional barometer of the test scores, and not looking at it structurally from the way you're looking at it.
So there's work being done here in Michigan through Dr. Rice and the Michigan Department of Education to take into account social emotional learning and the assessment that students are measured by in school districts. So I do want to acknowledge that. But you have so many, who drives public education? It's not necessarily educators. With all due respect, there are legislators and business people who are saying that children are leaving unprepared for the workplace. Then allow us to do more around the vocational piece to prepare them for the workplace, because the way schools are designed now, the majority of children are being asked, they're asking us to prepare them for college. I believe that you prepare every child for college with the understanding that I have to place you on the most appropriate path. So if I took away what the newspaper said we were doing, and I had to evaluate the work that we're doing based on how you and your child feel by the time they leave our district, are they then able to find success when they leave? Success should be the indicator that we use in terms of where they're going, not whether or not they're performing at a level that says they're going to go to college, which is a space that many of them can't even afford to stay. So I'm going to measure success, and I can only speak for River Rouge, by how healthy is this child when they leave us? Where did we meet them at? How successful are my teachers and able to address whatever their own personal issues may be,
Right.
to give them the support that they're able to help kids. And this isn't just feel good. I know kids would not have been successful had they not come to us. But the people that are making decisions don't necessarily have that understanding because we all have a different vantage point.
So let's get into the anatomy of the River Rouge School District.
Yes.
What you see in there, the challenges, and what you see as the achievement, the successes that are not necessarily the predominant view, if you will, of what a success looks like.
Yes. So success or the challenges that are in River Rouge are no different than the challenges in Detroit, Chicago,
Benton
Harbor, Flint, any area in the state of Michigan that has high poverty, you're going to see some of these same issues.
Right.
But while I know we're talking about Michigan, I've seen this all across the nation. And so for the children that come in there every day, how do we say that this child is less successful than their more affluent peer when we already know the conditions that they're coming from? That child does not in every case have an opportunity to have an adult at home that can help. The pandemic showed us one thing, and it's the first time in the history of the United States that we've been able to go inside of every home for every child that we have. We have teachers who left there with PTSD because what you thought the child was dealing with and who they actually were changed with just physically being able to see into that space. And so how do you not account for the community violence? Any acts of sexual aggression that occur to children, anything that affects their ability to come in
the social
and receive.
vices that victimize them.
Exactly. You have to account for that because that child isn't prepared for whatever it is that you're giving them if they don't feel protected, safe.
Yeah.
So I think that.
So do you feel that with what the pandemic has laid bare, right, the insurmountable challenges and this deeper revelation, as you explained, for the first time going into a child's home and seeing sometimes the just unacceptable environment that they may find themselves in, do you feel that River Rouge is now forced to do more? Are you looking? Is it a situation where you're like, we need to speed up now?
Yes. No.
When these kids come to school.
So I'll restate the narrative.
Okay.
River Rouge is given an incredible opportunity to do more. And what I told my staff during the pandemic is that there's opportunity in crisis. For any child that has been able to successfully move from poverty, you already knew what existed. It didn't take the pandemic. Consider this. For families that didn't have any money during the pandemic because they couldn't go to work, how's that any different than any child that is already living in a situation like that?
Yeah.
If food or the access to food is now restricted because of the pandemic, if I'm not eating anyway, if the power is not on in my home, the pandemic didn't do anything. We were already dealing with that. So if it did nothing, it gave us an opportunity to say that whatever we assumed, we were wrong. And now we have a responsibility to do more because we know what's actually going on in these homes.
The issues have become more pronounced.
Yes.
So to our viewers and to those in Lansing here, the legislative year, what would you ask of the governor and the legislature in Lansing now?
Yes. So I want to acknowledge, and I am probably the most apolitical person you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
Lansing, our Governor Whitmer, again, Dr. Rice, Michigan Department of Education, and the body, State Representative Tyrone Carter and others, they've done a phenomenal job in providing funding. So they've given us more money than we've ever had. The issue is now, where do the human resources come from? There's a national labor shortage. People aren't going into education. So they have done.
So you don't have a ready pool to tap into.
Absolutely. But they've created additional funding that says that you can utilize this money to create alternative certification paths, but that is not an immediate fix. So now if it's going to take that person 1 to 3 years to get certified, they're going through the training, the money has been there, but the process can't move fast enough because we just don't have people. I've watched restaurants close because they can't find servers. So imagine how difficult it is for us in a profession that was already seeing fewer people go into it.
Right.
That's been our biggest issue.
Have you seen more people left the teaching profession, the school after in the pandemic, wake of the pandemic?
Absolutely, and that's at all levels. There's never been an exodus as we've seen now with the superintendent's position. You're struggling trying to find chief financial officers and business people because of everything that's actual on teachers. You can't deal with that much trauma and not have an outlet healthy because you still have your own family life issues to deal with. And the lower you are on the salary scale, the more time you spend with children. Our lunch aides deal with, if there are 4 lunch aides and there are 150 kids in lunch, they have the same classroom size as a teacher with less training. So the work in itself is daunting, but it was difficult before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine
more exacerbated
just
now.
how much more pronounced it has become. So I do want to thank Lansing for providing money, but the question now becomes, how do we find people? So I could be hungry. I could have $1 million in the bank, but if there's no food there, the money isn't going to fix the fact that I don't have access to the food, and that's our struggle.
So you're in a logjam now. So what are you doing this year about it then?
So again, we've done a phenomenal job in identifying people who have had either an associate's degree or they had bachelor's degrees to get them in this alternative certification program.
Okay.
That has been incredible. There's a will, but now you have to give those people the skills. So again, you can identify the pool of people.
Yeah.
Input in, and then you're just going to process them out at some point.
Right.
So there's a mechanism and system in place, but it's going to take time.
That's a lot. So I think that's an important angle you pointed out, though, in terms of just the pool or the lack of human potential to tap into to address these issues within the district.
And if you were a teacher, or if you were somebody who has the ability to go to school and choose a career path, with the way in which the media and social media portrays the profession, it's not something that is you're just looking to do. If you're not purpose-driven, it's going to be difficult. And people will be like, oh, I'm passionate about it. Passion is an emotion. I've been passionately in love with a woman or two in my life. But the moment that dies, you move on. That passion can turn into resentment later because it's an emotion. But purpose is an incredible alarm clock. It's going to get you up every day. But that's difficult because everybody will not be of that spirit. And I don't condemn them for it. We're asking teachers to do a lot. But I do want to thank, and again, Lansing and others for attempting to support us with the problem. But now the larger issue is, where do we get people?
So the ball is in your court now.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Derrick Coleman, the superintendent of the River Rouge School District. We'll be right back with more on Sunday Nation.